We know we want to give our readers all the feels with every scene in our book, but how do we accomplish giving our readers the feels? Well, luckily, I have a feels method for writing strong scenes every single time. And we're going to look at this letter by letter now. Okay, F is for focus, meaning your character needs a goal. Okay. Your character needs to want something right here, right in the scene. They want something. Now, you don't want to confuse this scene's goal, which is a micro goal, with the goal of the book, the macro goal. They're interconnected, but separate. Let's look at a couple of examples. Say you've got a fantasy novel. You might have a macro goal of journeying into the interior of a hidden world inside an ancient volcano in order to retrieve the glowing rock that has the power to warm your entire village through a brutal winter. But in this scene, your main character just needs to get across a brutally cold river. Or maybe you have a mystery and your detective needs to solve the murder of a prominent local politician who had run for the Senate. In this scene, though, all the detective needs is to approach the politician's wife, get access to his home, and look for a few clues as to what the politician might have been involved in. So the basic idea again is your character needs to want something in this scene. And while it is a micro goal, it is also a step toward achieving the larger macro goal of the book. Okay, E is for emotion. Your scene needs a heart. What does your main character feel? And this is super important. How is this emotion driving the events of the scene? Now, emotion drives action, and action in turn fuels emotion. They're two sides of the same coin. For example, say we've got a romance, and our romantic lead, Leo, is terrified he is losing Michelle, whom he believes to be the love of his life. His terror and desperation over losing her potentially means he's now running through the airport, refusing to comply with any kind of screenings the airport adheres to. This means now the TSA agents are chasing him down and apprehending him, which means he's unable to catch Michelle before her plane leaves, which means now he's heartbroken and is breaking into tears. So you can see how they play against each other, action and emotion. Also, don't forget to layer it up here. Rarely do we ever feel just one singular emotion. Rarely do we ever even wear our hearts on our sleeves, right? What mix of emotion is your character feeling here? And how are they acting in ways that are actually different than the way they feel, all in an attempt to save face? Looking at the second E in our feels acronym here, E is also for escalation. Your scene needs stakes. What are the obstacles your character faces, and what would they lose if they're unsuccessful in the scene? Every character and goal needs something that stands in their way, whatever that is. Maybe it is the antagonist. Maybe it's a force of nature. Maybe it's the main character standing in their own way. But there needs to be an obstacle, and the character needs to have something on the line here. What could possibly happen if they fail? Okay, going back to our detective and our aforementioned mystery, maybe he knows that if he tips the politician's wife off to the fact that she's his prime suspect, he'll never get access to the politician's most private spaces. Now, clearly, in that previously mentioned romantic scene, poor Leo's about to lose the love of his life. But in earlier scenes, say during the couple's meet cute, the stakes are not as high simply because he doesn't feel as much. When they meet, he doesn't know her, and he simply wants to spend more time with a stranger who's piqued his interest. So keep in mind that your goals and conflicts get bigger as the book progresses, all the way up to the climax, where that scene is about the book's macro goal. L is for lens. Your scene is shaped through your character's world view, right? This scene is shaped by your character's eyes, not your eyes, not the writer's, by your character. What's their profession? What life stage are they in? A middle aged doctor will notice different things about the woman they bump into in the department store than, say, an 8-year-old girl. Remember, every scene needs context. Your character will give it context by interpreting it through their eyes. Let's try on another example. Let's say we have a horror novel narrated by a serial killer. This killer goes after women as a way to kind of exert power over a group of people he believes has only ever rejected him. So when he bumps into the female detective assigned to his case and they interact over something unrelated, maybe he's followed her inside a gas station, he interprets her preoccupation with the case and her inability to talk to him as just yet another brush off. And he decides she's next. Okay, the point is your main character's worldview shapes how they interpret every single thing that happens in this book. But here's the kicker, that worldview might not remain static. In fact, if their character arc contains a change for the better, for example, Scrooge's transformation in A Christmas Carol from miser to someone who wants to do right by others, their worldview will begin to change alongside that character arc. And finally, S is for shift. Your scene needs a point. Something changes at the end of the scene. The detective has a new clue. The couple in the romance has their first kiss. Or the main character hits a setback. Maybe that main character in our previously mentioned fantasy actually falls through the ice in the river and has to be rescued. But what if that rescuer becomes a sidekick for the rest of the book? The shift doesn't have to be huge, but something does need to change. These changes can be a plot development. Maybe your character is now one step closer or farther from the macro goal of the book. It could be a relationship shift. Two characters are seeing each other differently at the end of the scene. It could be an internal transition. A character's feelings or beliefs are evolving, and power lines can be redrawn. The person who has control can now change hands. This works even if your antagonist is not a person. Maybe your main character is doing a pretty good job of making it through a weather disaster until that tree they've taken refuge in begins to snap. Also, knowledge can be revealed. That can be a shift that ends this scene. Secrets can be exposed. Confessions can be made. When your readers invest in your scene, they are trusting that you're going to give them something worthwhile. Your pages will advance the plot or develop character or begin to bring the theme into focus. By following the feels method, you're honoring that trust and you're giving them all the more reason to keep reading.